Hello crafty friends, it's Jess from jesscrafts.com, and today I'm here with a review of the AmazaPens Sketch Fineliners. I did a review in the past of their gel pens and I was really super impressed with the quality of the products. So when I was asked to do a review of the Fineliners, I definitely wanted to give them a shot. They also mentioned how these Fineliners could be used for watercolor, which was very intriguing to me as I like to do some fun watercolor techniques. So today I'm going to share with you a little bit about these Fineliners and about how you can use them for watercolor. So the new Fineliners come in 24 different colors in a single package, and each marker has a triangular body, but the packaging is also a triangular shape, and it's a clear box so it fits nicely on your desk and can contain all of your colors in a way that's easy to see. These are Fineliners, and so that means that they are a marker-like pen. So they have that fine tip of a pen, but the writing like a marker. It makes them perfect for coloring, but also for writing. So if you're really into the planner craze, then may be perfect for you because you get a whole variety of colors in one pack, and you can write with a lot of detail. But also if you like coloring books with the finer details, as I know that a lot of them include really small areas that are difficult to get into. And so here I'm just showing you what it is like if I were to write in regular print or cursive and see that they flow really well. There's no skipping or pooling or anything like that, as can be a concern with some markers or pens. And so it's definitely small enough for writing, but also, like I said, perfect for your coloring books. However, what I found most intriguing was this ability to do watercolor with them. So I'm going to test that out in just a minute, but I wanted to show you some of the color options first. At the beginning of my video you saw that little swatch paper where I drew out all of the colors, and so I'm doing the same thing here, just kind of showing you what a little block of the color looks like. And I suggest doing that anytime you get a new coloring medium, just drawing little blocks of each color, especially if you label them, so that you kind of have an idea of what's going to come out. While the marker caps do match the actual colors pretty well, sometimes they don't match up in any marker, and so it's definitely great to have that little reference guide there. So I thought, well, if these are watercolor markers, perhaps you can color right on the paper and then pull it out with water like a traditional watercolor, but you might also have to scribble the pen off first, because I had experience with distress markers, which are kind of sold as possibly watercolor markers. However, when you scribble them onto the paper and try to drag them out, it doesn't. And they kind of stay where they are and they don't move a lot. They move a little bit, but not a lot. And so I have some watercolor paper here, and I started by first just putting the marker directly to the paper and seeing if they would blend out nicely. And what I was really surprised to see is it blended out beautifully. You can't see any of those original coloring lines on watercolor paper. It would probably be quite different on regular cardstock because that's not meant to take water. But if you're going to use watercolor paper, you're going to get a great watercolor effect. And if I take the same marker and I scribble it out on some plastic, such as the top of the box, I can also pull up color. And that's a nice option to have as well, because if you don't want as much pigment or you want to control the color a little bit more, you could add some extra water before bringing it to your paper. So once I saw how easily these blended out, and at this point I honestly had not tested every color, I just tested a handful of colors, I was ready to start some watercoloring on a project. And so what I did here was I just scribbled some different blues to sort of create an ombre look on a background, knowing that this would eventually create my sky. So once they were scribbled on, I took a wet brush, more of a flat brush, so that it would spread color quickly and cover the area more quickly, and started blending them together. I was pretty impressed with how well they actually blended into each other. It wasn't like a clear line of this blue and then a clear line of that blue. You could actually get the colors to mix around a little bit, which is definitely a benefit. Considering the price point of these markers and some other markers that have been told would do similar things, I definitely think that these are a winner in my mind. And because I've known I've seen people work with the Stabilo markers, which are similar in price point, although I think they're more expensive actually, and they don't blend out nearly as easily. Now, I did want to add in a little bit more color towards the top, so I found that I could scribble the marker onto that plastic lid there and put in more color, so I could add more color. However, you could scribble right on the paper as well. it probably won't work as well on wet paper. Like taking a marker to wet paper usually isn't as good as taking a marker to dry paper. Sometimes it'll like pill up or something like that. So just something to keep in mind. Now I wanted to color some images to complete the card, and so I'm starting here with some Lawn Fawn images. These are from the Lawn Fawn Into the Woods stamp set, and I'm going to color up the fox and the deer. Because I wanted to add some interest to them, I am going to use more than one color for each, and I'm using the orange color and then a sort of yellowy orange. I referred back to my swatch chart to know what the markers would look like. However, if you look at the pen caps, you get a pretty good idea. You could just look for, the orange and the yellow pen cap, and you'd pretty much have it. But it's just a useful little tool that you can access. And I found that by adding some of the yellow scribbled in with the orange, I was able to get a pretty nice blended effect. However, I noticed that not all of the markers blend equally. Some of them move a little bit better on the paper. This is not entirely unusual with different markers, as some colors are pigmented in different ways, but it is something to be aware of, and you might have to basically work one color a little bit more than another. So if you're finding that you're getting a stronger line, you might need to add more water, and so you can blend it out a little bit better, or you might have to also try a lighter touch, because some people have a tendency to scribble kind of hard onto the paper, and you're more likely to get a line there. So just try to keep your touch pretty light in terms of adding the color. I particularly like these for watercolor because you could get into a small space, whereas that might be a little bit harder to do with some other watercolors. Like I'm thinking about my Inktense pencils, which I love, and they're really, really bright. However, in order to get into a really fine area, you have to continuously sharpen them. And so you feel like you're losing a lot of pigment, you're worried about them breaking. You don't have to have those concerns here. And also, again, the price point is pretty comparable on those two. So this might be something that if you're also looking to use it just as pens outside of it, might be more beneficial. So I wanted to add a little bit of depth there to the deer's face, and so what I did was add some darker colors around the edges and then some lighter color in the center. Because even though you only are getting 24 colors, that might not sound like a lot, there's actually a good variety of each color. There's several blues, several reddish colors, several orange colors, and I never really found myself reaching for a marker and not finding the color that I wanted. I mean, obviously it is somewhat of a limited palette, and it might be something that you would see expanded in the future, but you get a pretty, good mixture of all the kinds of basic colors that you would need. So I was pretty happy with the selection. And I'm going to continue to add to the deer, adding some darker and lighter spots. Now on the deer, I decided to take a chance to really kind of see how these markers went and see if you could color when the paper was still wet, because that's definitely been a problem with some other watercolor markers that I've been suggested, is that basically if you try to add it to the wet paper, it splotches and pills and just does not look good at all. It doesn't blend out. I didn't really find that as much. I found that it still blended pretty well. And I found that you could reactivate the pigment with water, so just because you had already activated it, it wasn't quite permanent. It was not as flowy as just traditional watercolor, but something like an Inktense pencil, as soon as it dries, it's done. It doesn't really activate again. However, these were you could kind of reactivate them a little bit with some extra water. So that's a little bit more forgiving and might appeal to some other crafters. I would say that I noticed that when I wrote on a thin piece of paper, the markers did bleed through. So if you have a really thin paper in your planner, these might not be ideal. It depends on what you're looking for. Or I know some people are curious about Bible journaling. The Bible journals are often very, very thin, and so this might not be your best bet. However, the AmazaPen gel pens might be a much better choice, and I would highly recommend those as well. And you can check out the video on the gel pens in the video description below. So here I am trying to finish off the card. And I have used some similar watercolor techniques to color in some grass, and then I added some white clouds to the sky with white embossing powder. And since this video is focused in on the review, I didn't show every little step of the card because I know that you could find other videos on my channel explaining some of these techniques, like the heat embossing. And if you have any questions, be sure to just leave them in the video description below. But here I just wanted to add these cute little critters that I had colored in and show you how you could even get a nice blend on the grass. You might notice there's like darker and lighter greens because again there's two different, or I think 3 or 4 actually different colors of green in the selection. And so I'm just using some foam adhesive to add a little bit of dimension to them. I want to keep this card simple and focused in on the techniques that you can achieve with the markers. So I'm going to simply add a sentiment and no extra embellishments, and this is just the enjoy your day sentiment, also from Fawn, and I will just mount that on some black cardstock to really make it pop. So overall, I am really impressed with these AmazaPens. Like I said, I've been sold on supposed watercolor markers in the past that did not work nearly as well and were often more expensive than these. And I like that this clear case looks really great on my desk and I can see the colors so easily. So AmazaPens is a sponsor for this video, but one of the benefits of that is they are giving a discount code to subscribers, so you can be sure to check that out in the video description as long as it's still active, and head on over to Amazon to pick up your own AmazaPens for some fun watercoloring techniques or for use in your planner. Be sure to check out my other social media links in the video description below and give this video a thumbs up if you liked it. Thanks for watching. Bye.